Okay, these PowerPoints may speak for themselves, but I'm going to try to quickly go over basically what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've been teaching a medical school pathology course online worldwide, both lectures and labs, using the latest editions of the best American textbooks from the point of view of a pathologist who's been practicing pathology most of his life and teaching for the last 10 years. So, here's the disclosures which are necessary to keep the lawyers fat and happy. Do you remember the expression, give me a fish and I'll eat for a day? Do you remember what follows after that? What follows that is, if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So I want to point out that a lot of American efforts are going at giving a fish rather than teaching to fish, and they find out that this is not working. So what I have decided to do is to give medical students all over the world, whether they're in a foreign medical school or not, the opportunity to learn the way I have taught it at American medical schools and also Caribbean medical schools. So, we are all afraid about this topic of increasing national debt and outsourcing, losing our job, increasing fat corporate profits at the expense of American workers. I want to remind you that the one thing we will never outsource, in fact, we insource medical education for the entire world. All of the major medical schools in the world teach in English, almost. And if it was not for this fact, I wouldn't be able to have gone on this mission for the last 3 years. So here's my background. I was a regular old community hospital pathologist for 30 years. My wife got sick about 10 years ago and she passed away. I quit my practice at that point, taught at boxed medical schools. I call them jail box, but let's call them box for now. And then I started doing more and more online. I made a lot of movies because when I taught in the boxed medical schools, a lot of the questions in the lab were very repetitive. So I made a lot of educational videos in histology and histopathology, almost 1,000 now. And now I'm teaching almost entirely online. But if you want to give me a free vacation to your Caribbean school for a while, especially in the winter, I'll go there. That's how I evolved into it. These are my collection on YouTube of all my movies. I'm very proud of them. I have over 9,000 medical student subscribers, and as of today, which is September 2011, they've been viewed about 7.5 million times. The first year we did this, 2 years ago, we used a technology called Skype and DimDim. Most of you are familiar with Skype. It's a way to do group conversations free online. And if you use more than about 20 or 25 people with this technique, the video chokes you. We also were using the audio bandwidth chokes you. We were also using a free screen sharing program called DimDim, which was also limited to about 20 or 25 people. We did this very, very well, using a little whoop-de-zoo. I'm not going to go into the details of it because we don't use it anymore, but I have described it in great detail at the link that you see over there. Well, for the last 2 years, we've been using webinar. And remember, this is not generic webinar. This is the Webinar Corporation by Citrix. I'm not supposed to hype them, but I want to tell you I've been very happy with them. It's basically limited to 1,000 people, so in my opinion that's unlimited. It doesn't require bandwidth sharing. Everybody uses their own bandwidth, and it's not too user unfriendly. There are hierarchies of organizers, presenters, panelists, and attendees, which we could go into in detail, but my best advice is if you actually sit down and use it, you'll probably know how to get along with it almost instantly. We've had about 10 or 20 famous pathology professors from all around the world talk on this webinar method. They had never been familiar with it before, and all of their webinars went great. And they were all computer idiots, by the way. So what does the professor the presenter of great pathology knowledge needs to know? Well, he has to have a system to give a lecture. And I do not reinvent the wheel. I use the material that's in the latest edition of Robbins' Pathologic Basis of Disease textbooks, the one we all used in medical school. And we're up to the 8th edition. And Dr. Kumar is our friend who edits the book. And he also loves what we're doing. And it's divided into 10 chapters of what we call general pathology and then 19 chapters of systemic pathology. Now, the lab is completely different. In the lab, we view large, huge FPX files offline, and we then show them on webinar. So it's literally like having a 1,000-headed microscope. And the delay between the microscopic image focusing in with my eyeballs to the rest of the world is no more than 2 seconds. So what is a FPX file? It's something Kodak developed about, maybe 20 years ago. It's not used too much anymore, but if you have a FPX file and a very cheap or free viewer called FlashPix, you could view these things virtually as a virtual microscope instantly with incredibly good resolution and speed. And this is our pathology lab. I am the pathologist sitting in front of the microscope, and I have theoretically 1,000 people from 72 countries sitting around the table with me. And this is what it looks like. This is what I call the egomaniac's delight, the 1,000-headed microscope, and the true peer-to-peer networking. Of course, peering means peering into the microscope. So what are the requirements for the professor? Well, he has to have a computer, a broadband internet connection, and he has to view his microscopic slides offline, offline, offline. Because if you view them online, which most people do, then it interferes with the bandwidth of the webinar, and you will choke. It just won't work. Now, the students can use their PC, Mac, iPod, iPad, iPhone. I thought the Droid was ready yet, but people tell me it's not quite ready yet. If you want to be a student and ask live questions, you need a microphone, and you have to see, and you will see the presentation better than if you're in a classroom, and you will hear the presentation better than if you're in a classroom. And if you want to bring your mouth and say a few things, that's really, really much appreciated too. So here are the 4 levels of controllability. There's organizer, who is like God. He can do everything. There's the professor, who's the presenter, and he's the one that shows the PowerPoints and talks. Then there's the panelists, which are other people which can speak freely, and they're a little bit higher than the attendees, who can only speak if the presenter or organizer unmutes them. Because if you have more than 2 or 3 or 4 people who are allowed to speak at any time, your bandwidth will be choked and your system will die. So only one person at a time can speak. So here's your control panel. I'd rather not go into it now. It's better if you tried it. You can try this free, by the way. And once you know how to press 2 or 3 buttons, you'll figure it out. All of our professors were totally unfamiliar with the control panel, and as long as you just tell them what button to press, all of their presentations went beautifully. So what are our statistics from last year? We had over 1,000 registered students, 72 countries. I wound up giving 70 2-hour sessions, so that's about 140 hours of lectures and labs. Most of the students, out of those 1,000 attendees, less than 100 were generally at any given session. But when you look at the statistics of the people watching the archives after we made the sessions, you can see that they all have about 1,000 people or more who viewed them. So all of our students all of our attendees, I am assuming, took the course. However, 90% or more took it at their convenience, not my convenience. We don't have tuition, we don't have exams, we don't have grades. We just offer this as a resource for the students to learn pathology and kick ass on the National Board or USMLE Step 1 exam. This is the most fun I've ever had. It's professionally, the most worthwhile thing I've ever done. And someday I'm going to figure out how to make a business out of it and make money rather than do it as what an old man wants to do in his spare time after retirement. Here's one of our happy campers, Wagadan. She took the course in the middle of the Egyptian Revolution, and even though she was going to another medical school as well, when she wound up taking her exam, she ranked #1 in her entire country on the pathology exams, and received an overall whopping 99% correct on her exams. That's something I've never done in my life. Here's another happy camper in Florida who has the benefit of going to lab while she's feeding her baby, and her name is Elena, and the baby took pure milk rather than pure milk mixed with formalin fumes. So what are the advantages of webinar versus Jailbox? Well, I'm going to show you about 100 advantages. In all honesty, I can't think of any advantage of attending pathology lecture in lab inside of a building. The only thing that I could say is, if I offered you to go to come to my house and listen to my $10,000 stereo system of the latest Rolling Stones album, or if I said, would you rather have a couple of tickets to the Rolling Stones concert, you'd probably prefer to go to the concert. That's the only thing. It's a intangible thing in terms of cost, convenient, audio thing, visual. And remember, most people think that online schools are only better because of convenience. If there's one thing I want to press into your mind is, don't believe that crap. The students can see better, the students can hear better, and if you find somebody enough that's foolish enough to do it free, like me, then you're getting a very high level cost without paying $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and where pathology is half your curriculum. Here's something that I submitted to David Letterman. Actually, I didn't, but the next 4 pages are something I'll just let you read quickly. Some of them are funny and a lot of them are irreverent, but they're all true. So I want you to just think of, do you want your students to go to a real walled jail box called medical school, or do you want them to learn pathology online? There's the first 20 reasons. Here's about 24 more reasons. I'll give you about, maybe if you're a fast reader, you can read these in 20 seconds. Here's a few more reasons. Most of the reasons are for massive convenience, but I want you to remember your students are hearing better and seeing better. If you're in an auditorium and you're in the last row, you can't see these small PowerPoint letters. You could see them now though, can't you? Another thing is, very often there's so much background noise in class you can't hear what the professor says. And if you still can't hear what I'm saying, you can always play it back on the archives. Here's some more reasons. I also talk about the kumbaya feeling. Some students say, well, I'd rather go to class inside the jail box and be there with my friends, and we have that nice warm and toasty kumbaya feeling. And I say, well, if you want the kumbaya feeling, invite your friends over to your house and I'll sit around the computer. And if you want to feel warm and toasty, you could build a campfire. You can even take all your clothes off. That's something they don't allow you to do in the jail boxes. Here's the last few reasons. I got a real big problem with medical schools. They no longer follow the Hippocratic ideals. What they do is they are run by lawyers and MBA and pimps, and they rip off students. So I don't know what we're going to do about this, but I've been thinking of taking them to the state's attorney and saying, look, these people are bankrupting students, and rather than using that money to hire professors, they take researchers that are already bringing in money and they force them to teach, and they don't want to teach. So I think we'll have our closing comments dedicated to Pink Floyd, because this is what I feel about jail boxes. And I hope it works. Well, I might have to maximize the screen. So let's try it now. Rock on, everybody. I'm finished. You can get me at medicalschoolpathology.com. Thank you very much.